All right, everybody, I'm back. Again, work is still being work, but I'm going to try and put this intake on, the impulse line on, and show you the way I like to put the tank handle on to get the intake through without ripping it up. Sorry about the light. It's about 5 p.m. right now. I think I can get this done pretty quick. All right, don't know if you can see that in the light. Get it close enough. That is an OEM STIHL intake. And this is an OEM STIHL impulse hose. Reason I'm replacing them, this one right here, it's pretty stiff. I can't really squish it. This one right here, brand new, very little effort. It's very pliable still. We're gonna set this out of the way for a second. All right, on the backs of these, you can see you got a casting mark right here. Try to get it in frame better for you, right there. There's a casting mark right underneath the intake. On the intake boot, you have a little tab right here. That lines up with that casting mark so that you get it clocked right, so you're not having to fight it and it's not constantly under stress or tension. I just snapped that on right there. That's lining up nice and straight. We're good. And then just put your retainer on. Looks like I didn't really back that off quite as far as I needed to. Slip this little bugger on there. Looks like it's got a little bit of a bend in it. I think that's from whatever happened to this. Like I said before, I think somebody got it pinched really bad and yanked on it. Something else I was looking at whenever I was fixing that AV mount. I wonder if the thing didn't have a tree roll over it at one point and they just never caught that it busted the intake boot. All right, this does not need to be super tight. It needs to be tight, but it does not need to be stupid tight. There we go. All right, the way I do these right here, try to make sure you can see what I'm looking at. Poke it through. And I try to grab onto the impulse line with a pair of needle nose, and I will pull straight. You got to be a little bit patient with it so you don't actually destroy. All right. The way I like to do these, try to basically set them together for the first part. Gotta get my kill switch wires to go through as well. The kill switch wires are started in. Slide it together a little bit. What I like to do is I'll take a bootlace or a starter rope. Just slip it through the hole. Go over top of it a couple times and you'll just pull it through one side of the rope basically. I don't know if anybody out there has ever had to rope a windshield into an older vehicle, like a 70s model, like the old Ford pickups, things like that. That is basically how you do that. As you just pull the rope out, it pulls the lip of the intake through. Right there it is. I like doing that because these boots are a little bit thinner. And I don't really like the feeling of grabbing it with a pair of needle nose. That impulse line has a slightly thicker wall on it and you're just pulling straight. So you just like pinch it and just pull it in. When you're like pinching just a section of intake boot at a time and just like pulling it through, I feel like you can pop a hole in it pretty easy. I'm not saying I'm right, I'm just saying that's how I've always felt about it. I think STIHL even recommends you use a starter rope to pull that in. I just realized I forgot to do the impulse line. All right, just pulled all the screws back out. We'll just do this step again real quick. Pop the intake boot back out a little bit. Make sure I got plenty of slack on the kill switch wires. There we go. Now what you should do is reach in there with your needle nose, stick the impulse line on the impulse port right there. So it's all the way on now. All that time I just wasted. All right. Take a length of starter rope again. In my haste and excitement about being out here working on a saw, I missed something. Take a loop around. Take another loop around. Grab them both and get it started, lined up. Take one side. That's all she needs. All right, we'll put our plugs back in real quick. I remember one of the few saws I did for a friend of the family. I don't take very many repairs because I'm slow about getting them done. I'm not a very fast turnaround kind of guy. Just gives me something to do after work some days. But it was an 028, and evidently it had been leaking chain oil for so long that actually behind these plastic caps in there, it actually had a bunch of bar and chain oil built up inside of the AV mounts. It was kind of surprising to see. I've never seen that before. Turns out it was leaking bar and chain oil right out from under the muffler. The crankcase gasket was, I think the crankcase bolts come a little bit loose. Then over time, the saw running just kind of burned the gasket out a little bit. Did a pretty good number on it. All right. And there we go. Now here in a minute, I just got to scrounge up one more AV mount screw. And I think that will be down here in one of this collection of parts right here. Still think this is going to be a pretty sweet saw when it's all said and done.